everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 2 of season 4 of Bungo Stray Dogs. I am a little sickly. Luckily, I went to the doctor today. I don't have the flu or COVID or anything like that. I just have an upper respiratory infection, so fun times. I'm basically just tanked up on medicine and drinking tea and coffee and juice and everything else. But I was gonna record this last night and I felt like garbage, and so this morning I called in sick. I'm like, I am in no place to do my job, but I am in place to watch Bungo Stray Dogs. So that's where we're at. So I was like, I feel well enough, I feel like, to watch Bungo Stray Dogs and hopefully feel a little bit better. So if I sound a little bit nasally and gross, it is because I am. But I just couldn't wait. I was like, I want to see this episode so badly. And last episode was so good. So hopefully I won't, thank Ranpo's his dad or anything like that for this episode. But I do have some comments before we start. First of all, going to Olga. Olga talks about how in real life, Tanizaki Junichiro pretended that this is from the recap, by the way, the video I did on it, pretended that him and his wife were siblings, like, I guess as kind of a role play thing. Sure, I'm not going to judge. But maybe that's how in the anime they're not actually siblings, but they think that they are or say that they are. Either way, I'm not the biggest Naomi fan, but if that were the case with the actual author, Tanizaki, then I'd be like, okay, that kind of makes more sense because they don't look alike at all in the anime. So thank you, Olga. Dana in the Discord was talking about a theory that the more Ranpo goes into Fukuzawa's life, the more color is going to be elaborated on and expanded upon in the episodes, kind of like a Pleasantville effect. The world's going to become more colorful because in the flashbacks of last episode, they were in color with Ranpo. Like Fukuzawa looking back and seeing Ranpo in the flashbacks, they were in color. I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I'm just going to say this flashback arc is probably going to tug at my heartstrings. I've not read Untold Origins, which is the light novel this is based off of, so I'm going in this blind, y'all, but I just have a feeling I'm going to be like, this is going to tug at my heartstrings, isn't it? So I'm fully prepared for that. It's also been said in the Discord that Oda and Ranpo, they did, well, here's the thing. It didn't even hit me until rewatching episode 1 that Oda and Ranpo, they met right before Oda died in Dark Era. So them meeting again in this is just, it's crazy. But yeah, what's interesting is Dana also noted that Oda technically stopped killing after Natsume gave him his book and he was reading it. So it's clear though that I feel like Dazai had an influence on him. So that's interesting to note. And then speaking of Dazai, we were talking about this in the Discord, that Ranpo and Dazai are kind of antithesis of themselves, whereas they're both alienated and isolated because of their intelligence. But Ranpo, whereas Dazai kind of goes like the more emo, angsty route with it, being like, I need to be alone. Ranpo's like, no, I just would be around people, sure, what's wrong with this? Like, Ranpo's a much more innocent version of Dazai with it. Hopefully not gonna be a coughing mess during this whole reaction. This might have been a bad decision, but too late now. But also Oda using his feet against Fukuzawa is exactly the same way that Chuya uses his feet against Hirotsu. I thought that was really cool, and there's been a lot of things on Twitter showing Oda using the same moves in Dark Era that he uses in that episode, so that continuity is really fun. I like that. Nagan Pham Thon Din, hope I said that right, talks about how Fukuzawa, we talk about generations and things going from one generation to the next. Fukuzawa gave their bowl of Zenzai to Ranpo, Dazai gave Atsushi a bowl of Chazuko, and then Atsushi in turn gives Kyoka a bowl of tofu. So it's just gone from like one generation to the next, right? I think that's pretty cool. And then finally, Jufli talks about Ranpo in season 1, believing he is the best detective and the best in the room that he is, and he's special. And then in this episode 1 of season 4, Ranpo, before, when we first meet him, doesn't believe he's special at all. And doesn't think he's better than anyone. So I'm going to say Fukuzawa's had a big influence on Ranpo believing he's special, but we'll see how that plays out in this episode, right? We shall see. So yeah, I'm pretty excited, y'all. Dive into this episode. Hopefully I won't be a coffin mess, but we'll see what happens in episode 2, but I couldn't wait. I wanted to see what happens. So we're going to start episode 2 of Bungo Stray Dogs season 4 here in 3, 2, one, and let's do this. I knew it. I knew as soon as that officer showed up and he had a distinct look to him. I was like, he did not look generic. He looked like he had a distinct look to him. I'm like, damn it, he's probably gonna have a role to play in all of this. And I wondered if he was the murderer, and then no, he's kidnapped Ranpo. No, thinking that he's gifted. Damn it, no. So there's, I was starting to get worried throughout this episode that I was like, is this just going to be a two-parter? That seems, because so far, I mean, Dark Arrow was 4 parts. It was 4 episodes. And then the Chuya and Dazai at age 15 was 3 episodes. I was like, are they really only going to do 2 episodes for this? But no, it's at least a 3-parter. And I'm like, okay. Because this is based on a light novel, so I feel like it's more than just 2 episodes worth of information. But now I feel like it could be a 3-parter, that we have the 3rd episode rounding things out, and that we went through the 1st episode establishing Fukuzawa, him meeting Ranpo. This next episode is establishing it's all Fukuzawa's fault that Ranpo thinks he's gifted. You put this on an impressionable 14-year-old mind, Fukuzawa. You knew what you were doing. No take backsies. You can't stop it now. And I feel like next episode is going to be the final thing. But I need to go back through this episode and see what they did with Natsume, because that's really interesting. We have the playwright being dead, all of that. It's very interesting. I like the motif, how they set this whole thing up of being the angels and talking about the wingless fallen angels. And the cool thing is that Ranpo figures it out right off the bat, and the play is a nice little setting. It's a nice little thing. It doesn't really, the whole thing is with Ranpo and Fukuzawa and Natsume, which we'll get some insight on, as well as this other character that seemingly has kidnapped Ranpo. But the whole play thing is like the superfluous part of it, right? Which is funny because it seems like that would be the part that we need to pay attention to. But no, that's not the case. So I do like the set piece. Like, I would go watch a play like this with all the green screen and all the stuff, with all the plays and everything. Like, the set looks great. It looks really cool. It has a very Neon Genesis feel, which I thought was pretty funny. But Ranpo, what I love about this episode are 2 distinct things. One, the idea that the glasses are what brings us into color. We were debating in the Discord, we're like, oh, well, we'll think it's Fukuzawa. Once Fukuzawa realizes more about Ranpo, his world is going to become colorful. But it's a 2-way street. It was Ranpo realizing that his world seemed black and white when reality Fukuzawa gives him the color. So that part, oh my gosh, was so good. So good. I was like, but yeah, but so poor Ranpo, like him in the theater, that whole breakdown was so sweet and tragic, because there's the guy up there giving his big monologue, and he's like, we are gifted, we are humans, we are of the earth. He's like, they are called the gifted. And I wonder if that's just like a play. It's kind of a meta commentary on the idea of the gifted people like Fukuzawa, because Fukuzawa has said nothing about his ability at this point. He's not brought it up at all, the whole all men are created equal. He hasn't brought it up at all. So I'm like, does Fukuzawa know he's gifted? Or does he just not use his ability? That's interesting. We'll talk about that with the glasses here in a minute. But Ranpo has no clue what gifted means. And I love that he's just like Fukuzawa's looking around the theater, like trying to keep eyes on everything. And Ranpo's like, gifted? What does that mean? He's like, what's a gifted? And they do the Neon Genesis thing where there's 2 different conversations happening at once. He says, we are humans, we are of the earth. And I love that Fukuzawa's response is the most adult thing to say to a kid when they're like, hey, what's the answer to this? And Fukuzawa's like, just watch, it'll make sense later. Like, you'll get it if you keep watching, kid. Like, that's such a parent thing to say to a kid. Like, just you'll figure it out if you watch. And Ranpo's like, no. And Fukuzawa's like he's eyeing Natsume, who's watching from the other seat, right? And the guys keep monologuing. He says, having rejected being angels. He's like, who is he? We dream, we love, and seek fulfillment, possible only because we are finite. And then Ranpo says, can I ask something? And he's like, the people are paying to watch this, right? And you can tell, like, the other person kind of looks over to see what they're talking about. He's like, why doesn't anyone get upset at being forced to sit through a show? And meanwhile, the guy playing the angel, says, "We do not regret that decision. To choose one's own way of being is the truest form of the soul." He says, "Why doesn't anybody get upset with such an obvious ending?" And Fukuzawa's like, "Hey, don't spoil the ending, okay?" Like Fukuzawa knows that Ranpo has already figured it out. And he's like, hey, don't ruin it for the spectators. And Ranpo's like, "Well, he's the murderer, isn't he?" And he points to a guy, like, up there on the stage. And angels and humans are entirely of different dimensions. You can tell in the first 5 minutes. And Fukuzawa's like, "Get down!" I had a friend, we went and saw Narnia. If you've not seen Narnia, spoilers for Narnia, just ignore the next 30 seconds. But when Aslan dies, like, a bunch of people were crying, and my friend was in the theater, like, slurping her drink, being like, "He's gonna come back in 3 minutes." And I was like, damn it, no. Very Ranpo-like. But angels can have the fulfillment, which is of the realm of humanity. And he's like, "Stop it." And then Ranpo, he's like, "Why?" He's like, "Why is everyone watching this play without complaining?" Like, this is just the sweetest thing, is that Ranpo, I like that there's been a lot of discussion with the last several seasons of Ranpo, like, being on a spectrum, right? And I feel like this is such a touching moment, because Ranpo, he's like, why isn't everybody getting it? And the thing of it is, Ranpo does get it. Ranpo gets it immediately, but Ranpo does not, like, the things that society, the barrier society puts up, like, they sit through the play even if they figure out the ending, or society, like, doing certain things in a specific order. Ranpo doesn't understand that, because he's like, that doesn't make sense. Why don't we just come out and just do things so obviously? And it's so, like, it just cuts to your core, because it's like, no, Ranpo thinks that he's in the wrong, and it's like, no, honey, you're the intelligent one surrounded by a bunch of idiots, right? He's like, why do they watch this play without complaining? And he's really tore up about it. Like, he's just like, and then, of course, he's like, "It really upsets me." Meanwhile, the angel is saying up there, "On the inside are like an author and their characters, never shall they intertwine." So I'm wondering, we have the playwright being dead by the end of this, if that line about the authors and their characters not intertwining, if that's going to come back later. I'm curious. But yeah, and he's like, and yet, he's like, "I don't get it." He's like, "There's something everyone else gets that I don't." And it's so, like, it just, his little face, like, him being so sad about it, it's like, it just cuts to the core of you, because it's like, no, you do get it. It's just, he doesn't understand why everybody has all these barriers put up, right? And it's just so sweet. And meanwhile, the angel guy is saying, "And there are those who, despite being human, have some fragment of angels' forbidden supremacy," which is talking about the gifted, right? So I feel like that conversation is in perfect sync with what Ranpo's talking about, because Ranpo's the one who has part of the angel's forbidden supremacy. He has this ability of deduction. So it's like he has, like, the gifted angel ability. He just doesn't realize it, right? I feel so bad for him in this moment, though. And he's like, "Oh, that is truly the cursed soul that we call gifted." He's like, "I don't get it. I'm scared." He's like, and I just, God, he's like, "None of us can possibly be as sinful as the gifted." Interesting. I like Fukuzawa's just looking down, and I'm like, how do I help you, kid, understand that you're really special? You just don't realize it. And it's just so sweet. It's like the world, it's like the accursed gifted snuff us out one by one, like prey for the hunt, which is an interesting line of dialogue there, suggesting that the gifted are hunting out individuals who aren't gifted, which we know is not the case. So I'm curious with the playwright how that is going to go, right? Because he ends up dying. And then Ranpo says, "It's like the world is filled with monsters. Monsters that only I don't understand." And it's like, no, you get it. You do understand. And it's like, oh, he says, "I'm all alone." And that's so sad, right? It's so sad living in a world of monsters. And Fukuzawa's like, "Oh, honey, no, they're not monsters. They're idiots." I feel like it's a Blazing Saddles moment. He's like, "These are just people of the land. You know, morons." I feel like someone needs to, like, edit that line from Gene Wilder from Blazing Saddles, like when Fukuzawa's talking to Ranpo, like, "No, honey, you don't understand. This is all, you're not in the wrong. Everyone else pretty much is." I love Fukuzawa's like, I'll give you the answer you're looking for. And everybody else is kind of like, what the hell? He says, have your parents said anything about your talents? And Ranpo's like, talents? I wish I had a talent. So that the answer is no. His parents probably died before they realized, like, what he was capable of. And he's like, it wouldn't be so hard to find work if I had a talent. It's like, oh, honey, you do. And I love that Fukuzawa's like, no, you do have a special talent. He's like, yes. He's like, you were right. I used to carry a sword. Like, he's like, you were right in all of your judgments. And I love Fukuzawa goes, like, through his backstory as the master of swords within the government, which is why all the police seem to know who he is. But we'll talk about that one police guy. He's like, I thought that my sword would bring peace to a nation. So I sincerely believed, and that's why I killed people. It's very much like, if you watch Spy Family, there's a character that is an assassin, and they believe kind of the same thing. It's like assassination was far too easy. And he says, I only became fearful when I noticed that I was eagerly waiting for the next assassination. And I love that they make him blue like an ogie, like a demon, and like an ogre. And he's like, I could no longer tell whether I was murdering for my country or for that moment to kill. Like, was I enjoying it too much? And it went beyond my job. And that's when he's like, things are bad. This is not right. That's when he noticed he had a problem. And I love the idea that they use, like, the eyes widening whenever they realize the truth. And he's like, that's when I decided I'd never wield a sword again. But he does end up wielding a sword again later on, so that's good to note. No one else has learned about my past occupation except you. You guessed the murderer in the player layer. Which we'll talk about that cop then, because he said no one else had guessed his profession, but the cop was very eager to get his assistance. So we'll go back to that moment. And he's like, you guessed the murderer in the play, and only you could have gleaned that answer so quickly. I wouldn't have known if I hadn't read the script. It's like, have you ever thought that those people around you are the fools? That they're all clueless idiots? And Ranpo says, yes. He says, I have thought that. He's like, I have thought that could be a possibility. And that's when Fukuzawa creates the monster. He says, you are special. Other people are fools, including me. He's like, the reason you're alone is because you have a special talent. And he's like, special? And then, yeah, he's like, but abilities need to be controlled. For you to pretend not to notice your own talent is the same as my past self swinging a sword in pursuit of blood. He's like, it's not responsible. And Ropa asks if he's the only one that's special. How could that even happen? He's like, there's lots of people in the city. And so Fukuzawa's like, well, there could be others that are talented too, but not with your particular talent. He says, you're gifted. And Ranpo's like, he's like, excuse me. And so that's when Fukuzawa basically creates the thought that he's gifted. It's an ability is one that allows you to determine truth at a single glance. There are numerous people with special gifts in this world. And that's why he turns around to, he's like, your special ability, it's because of that the people around you look like monsters. You have to control that ability. Now, my thing is, with the glasses, Fukuzawa has the ability to control others' abilities. That's the whole all men are created equal. He has the ability to have some type of control. But the deal is, Ranpo's ability is not an actual ability. He just is gifted in the sense that he's insanely smart and can deduce what other people cannot. But it's not an actual ability. So Fukuzawa can't precisely control it himself. So he gives him the glasses to be like, okay, well, this is your way of differentiating between your deduction and not. He's trying to give Ranpo a chance at freedom because Ranpo believes he's living in this world where he can't be not smarter than everybody else. And he's like, well, look, if you just use the glasses, wink, wink, then you can use your ability whenever you want to, but this is a way of you to control it, right? It's a means of you finding a control. But the funny thing is he didn't have it before. He's never had the glasses up until this point. So it's kind of like he just creates this scenario. And Ranpo, who's 14 and very impressionable, goes along with it. And he trusts Fukuzawa. So it makes sense later on when Yasano is like, you know, you don't really need the glasses. And Ranpo's like, are you suggesting Fukuzawa lied to me? It's like Fukuzawa knows he can use the power without them, but he trusts Fukuzawa and has faith in what Fukuzawa did for him back when he was 14 and goes along with it because That's the type of relationship that they have. And the moment that he puts them on, and Fukuzawa knows that they're not really any special glasses, but the moment he yells and like pushes and scares Ranpo and pushes him back, right? And he has the glasses on, and his world just like illuminates in color. And he's like, you're going to be the world's best detective. Everyone else is just foolish children that needs your protection. The glasses have accepted you. I love that he just phrased it. And he's like, this creepy world. And so we see people like chasing him out of the inn. And we see people like throwing him onto the streets that chased me out time and time again. They even like slapped him. How dare they? And he had like he was beaten up. That's so sad. And it's like him in front of his parents' grave. It's so sad. And everybody's walking away from him. All that suffering wasn't because there's something wrong with me. No. It's because there's something wrong with the people around me. Yeah, I love that message that Fukuzawa gives him that's like, you're not the problem in this case. Everyone else just doesn't understand you and they lash out, but it's not anything wrong with you. Now, he's created a monster. All of Ranpo's egotism comes from this one moment. You started this, Fukuzawa. You did. But God, the moment it becomes color is so sweet. Like the moment he's like, they're all clueless children. Would a baby who can't even hold its head up ever despise another? And Ranpo, like his eyes widening with the truth. Oh, I love it. I love that he gets this moment and it all comes together. No one's ever despised me. They just don't realize. I love that Ranpo gets that moment of realization from Fukuzawa that no, people didn't hate him. They just didn't understand him. They just were clueless to what he could do. It wasn't that they hated him. It's just that. And then Ranpo just becomes who we all know him to be. Only this is 14-year-old version of Ranpo, so he's quite unrestrained. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Ranpo has matured a lot over the last several years to become the Ranpo we know currently. And so Ranpo goes on to fight and figure this all out, right? And we go back to the actor who's like ready to go. Now my big question is, I want to go back to his death. I love the idea of the angel wings turning red with blood. So he basically activated in his hand like a pouch to like burst. And he jumped off the stage and the pouch was his own blood, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he just leapt himself off the stage, right? Yeah, of course. I'm glad he like fakes it pretty good because that face planting, it would probably hurt him. And then I like that the detective, now here's the thing. When he goes to find the detectives and ask them not to let anybody leave, when he goes back to them, I want to go back to that moment of the police officers. We see the one guy and he walks up to them. Like they've got the place surrounded and he's like, where'd Ranpo go? And then we see the one guy walk up with the funky hair who doesn't look like any of the other police officers, and he's the one that says a member of the audience has disappeared. He's the one that I think killed the playwright and captured Natsume. Because then Fukuzawa shows up and he says, oh, why, hello, sir. Like, he instantly comes to attention. Unless he knew Fukuzawa, why would he do that? I feel like I'm being Ranpo right now. I'm like, no, why would he do that? So the guy with the long hair, damn it, he's the one that set Natsume up to get taken away. He's the one that killed the playwright, and now he's got Ranpo. Dang it. Not good. But yeah, he goes up and asks, he says, I overheard someone fled from the audience. And that's when this guy speaks up. And yeah, he has a very distinct look, so damn it, he's important. No! Dang it. And finds out where they were. And so then he goes back, looks around, and then finds the one woman who said that Ranpo gave her the whole shrimp and the bream speech. That it was all basically the shrimp is the easy part. It's the bream. So yeah, the whole thing with Natsume was just part of an act to get to a bigger picture that we, the audience, don't know yet. Dang it. And because I was like, what have I created? I like the detective insinuates that she insinuates that maybe Ranpo isn't gifted, but she's like, is he or is he not? And Fukuzawa was like, oh, God, what have I done? He's like, what have I done? No. And then Ranpo showing up, I'm gifted and a brilliant detective. I love that Fukuzawa was like, oh God, what have I done? Let's go to the chapter where it's all solved. Fukuzawa, you becoming a parent, right? becoming a parent and realizing you created this monster, now you have to live with it. A lot of you think the angel killed him, but the angels are real and they're humans. The executors become the executed. So he points out that Natsume, he's the victim in this. Yeah, he's the one that's been kidnapped, but it's not, yeah, he's been put and set up for the police, and the guy playing the angel is actually the one that wasn't murdered. He's the actor. And of course, I don't think that the actor is in this in the long haul. I think in this moment, he was just trying to do this great tour de force acting move where he staged his own death to like do the ultimate act, right? And then he realized that that was maybe a big no-no, that wasn't a great idea. Probably did not get the response he was intending. Because Ranpo's like, these people all came to see you, and you basically betrayed them by trying to kill yourself. You forced them to go through this trauma. That's not acting. That's, you caused these people to go through trauma. So maybe not the best career move, right? I don't foresee this actor having a great career after this play. I'm just saying. But yeah, then Ranpo says, I needed the stage right. Or the guy says, I needed the stage right to make this all work. So what the hell's going on? He's like, look at all the faces in the audience, and they all look traumatized. And then he turns himself in. So I like that Ranpo's like, with these glasses afterwards, after the cops take Natsume and the actor away, which, what did they do with Natsume? What are we doing with that? I was like, I kept wanting Fukuzawa and Natsume to have a conversation. I still think they're going to, but I think it's going to be in the next episode. Because if I remember right from previous seasons, Natsume from season 3 is the one that set up the armed detective agency for Fukuzawa. So it's all going to come full circle next episode, right? Right? I feel like it is. Of course, Ranpo thinks he's invincible now, which is wonderful, adorable. And he's like, thank you, sirs. And that's when this one guy shows up. Ever since I saw you, security policeman, I was convinced that you would solve the case. And he's super suspicious. Now, the question is, did Ranpo know what was going on when this guy started talking to him? Did he figure out he needed to go with this guy to help solve the case? Or what? That's the big question, right? I would never have thought you'd have such a secret weapon. I want to see, he's like, about that, I believe we must have you explain the resolution of the case at our station. Which is a bit suspicious in hindsight. Like, why couldn't they just take the resolution on paper and take it back to the station? Why couldn't they just do the testimony now? Why'd they have to take him away? Anytime a character gets in a cop car to go back to the station, I get suspicious. Because I'm watching several series now where that's been a thing. And don't do it. Kids, don't get in cop cars and go back to the station. Have them do the report there. But yeah, I should have seen it coming, right? Should have seen it coming. This guy has distinct hair and orange eyes. And it's like, all thanks to my special abilities that we solved the case. I like Fukuzawa has the very 30s, like, oh God, look on his face. Lord, give me strength, is what he's like, just kidding. And then this guy says, oh, you're gifted like in the play. And then Fukuzawa's like, oh God, the young detective's gifted. Well, he says, that's right, a gifted crime solver. Brilliant detective Edogawa Ranpo at your service. And now Fukuzawa's like, okay, wait a minute, hold it. He's like, hold on. He's like, sir, I'll handle the police hearing. He's like, wait a minute. He's like, Ranpo is exhausted from his detective work. I need to talk to him. And I love that Ranpo's like, I'm actually fine. I'm not going to bed early. And Fukuzawa's like, you simply inferred the truth through observation and deduction. Now Fukuzawa realizes that he's created a monster and he's trying to go back on it, being like, okay, whoa, wait a minute. Before you start telling everyone you're gifted when you're not, we need to backtrack. He's like, no. You actually just used observation deduction. You never used a special ability. And Ranpo's like, well, excuse me, but you're the one who said I'm gifted. You're the one who started this. I love how just Ranpo's like, excuse me, sir, are you going back on what you said? And I love that Fukuzawa like has an eye twitch. He's like, I'm telling you. Like, I was just trying to make you feel better. He's like, do you seriously think? He's like, that I could have instantly seen through the case if I wasn't gifted. And the one police officer says, I don't think so. And Fukuzawa's like, I was just trying to make him feel better in the moment. I didn't know I was creating something. I didn't know this was going to become a thing. And the police officer's like, if the police are going to suck up to me, now's the time to do it. Of course, Ranpo's ego, right? He's a 14-year-old kid, though. Can we blame him? And Fukuzawa's like, the ability to solve crimes instantly is a godly power that can threaten the police's job. I love that Ranpo's like talking to him. He's like, I want to ride in the police car. He's like, seems like this is going to take you a while, so I'll see you there, mister. Now the police officer looks back to him at Fukuzawa like, oh, you're not going with us. And he's like, fine, all right. I'm going to discuss the cleanup tasks with Igawa-san. I'll see you there. He's like, please take care of Ranpo. And he says, understood. And then, of course, Ranpo, like, cheeses it up to him. And I wonder if him tripping over the billboard had anything to do with anything. I wonder if he was tripping over the billboard to, like, make a scene or do anything special. I wonder if there was something to it. Or maybe it's just Fukuzawa being like, what a kid. But then he says, Fukuzawa-san, huh? Like, oh, this kid's calling me something like that? Okay. All right. And that's when he goes back to talk to the actor in them. And then he says, who was that man? Who was the man that was unconscious for a while? And he says, I'm told the gentleman is the other aim of this project. And he's like, you were told? He's like, I planned this with the stage right Kurahashi. And he said, I want to get this right. And he said that the project, he seemed to have plans of his own. Like, the one part of the plan was to get the actor to do what he wanted to do and to stage his death. But then Natsume's involved in the other aspect of it, which is like, the gentleman in the suit rarely appears in public. Apparently capturing him was one of the objectives. So there's more to it than just this whole play. There's something else happening. And that's when Fukuzawa finds out that the playwright has the victim been here the whole time. The stage right's been murdered in his room. And then we find out that, but there's a book there, right? There's a book there and feathers and a sword going through him. What the hell? So what's the deal? A murder in a closed room. What's going on? And then we cut back to Ranpo in the police car and he's like, oh, officer, are we there yet? And he's like, oh, we'll be there soon. Nope. And he's like, damn it. And so next time, the secrets of the founding of the detective agency. Yeah, so Natsume, the playwright's death, Ranpo, all this, it's getting fishy. I'm like, dang it. Ugh. I feel like this episode was such a setup episode for the next one. Like, we needed this episode to get the playwright out of the way, to get the playwright, the initial setup of this out of the way. We needed that first. But now that we have that out of the way, now we have to deal with the real meat of the story, which is whatever this police officer is with Natsume and the playwright. That's the meat of this. Maybe it will be a 4-parter. I don't know. But I like the day is the dream, the night is real. Like the stuff that we think is reality was all just the setup for what's really going to happen in the next episode. So yeah, basically. Okay, fine. I am very curious to know your thoughts down below, what you all think of this episode. This episode was definitely a setup. I feel like everything was going to go down next episode or the one after that, but now we have to wait and see. But Ranpo getting created, the gifted detective getting created this episode definitely warmed my heart. And Fukuzawa gonna have to go after Ranpo, his adopted child. Gonna adopt more of them kids later, but... And he makes the mention of how the detective agency needs to be armed. He's basically, the armed detective agency is to protect Ranpo. Ranpo is the basis of it, as we've seen in other seasons. But he basically had the other gifted users there to help protect Ranpo, his adopted son. So, I'm excited to see next week's episode. I hope you all are too, but in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 3 of Bungo Stray Dogs Season 4. Bye.